we have a panel that's going to help us discuss on this important topic of digitizing for business re-entry. And really, this is a CEO's perspective. And to take us through this discussion and to moderate this panel for us is Lena Gashoki. Lena Gashoki is very passionate in aspects of leadership and development, and most specifically skewed to women in leadership. And in fact, just to have to put a rejoinder to it, at the Strathmore University Business School, she is our current course lead for Women in Leadership program across the region. That is Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and we are looking to even expand to other spaces within the continent. She is an ICF certified productivity coach, and interestingly, she's pursuing her PhD in with specialization in organizational behavior and human talent research. I think that will be an interesting one to keep an eye on, and we are waiting for your thesis, Lena, with a lot of anxiety, especially in the talent research part. So she's also our moderator for today, and like I said, a faculty at the Strathmore University Business School. So at this point, I'd like to invite Lena to introduce our panel to us and to take us through the session. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you very much, Hans, for that kind introduction. And I can see you're already putting the pressure on the thesis. It will surely come, and I hope that it will change the corporate environment, and especially when it comes to the women in leadership. So it's my great pleasure to host the captains of the industry today. We have Nancy Matimu and Paul Russo. Welcome to the conversation. So I would like to just give a brief about each one of them. So Nancy Matimu is currently the Managing Director of Kenya's leading video entertainment service. She was appointed by MultiChoice Africa in 2019 to head the MultiChoice Kenya business to further strengthen it in the provision of the best content on DSTV and GoTV, as well as ensuring seamless customer experience. And something very interesting to note and exciting for me is that she's the first female managing director to head up MultiChoice Kenya business in its 25-year history. Well done, Nancy. She has an illustrious 15-year career, having led and driven growth through transformation of businesses, capacity building in brand, products, and innovation, as well as sales and operational excellence. She has inspired high-performance teams to deliver extraordinary results in leading organizations in financial services and ICT. Prior to joining MultiChoice, she was the Vice President, Head Market Development, Sub-Saharan Africa at MasterCard. She has previously served in the HF Bank as the Chief Digital and Marketing Officer, and Safaricom, where she led or held various roles, including Head of Safaricom Home and Content. Nancy is an alumni of, she holds an MBA in Strategic Management from Strathmore University, a bachelor's degree in Environmental Studies from Kenyatta University. Very interesting shift there, Nancy. And she is also a graduate of the Advanced Management Program and Chief Executive Program, both offered here at Strathmore Business School in collaboration with YESA Business School and Lagos Business School. Welcome to the panel, Nancy. Then we have Paul Russo, who's currently the Managing Director, National Bank of Kenya, and the Group Regional Business Director, KCB Group PLC. Hans, you said an interesting statement where you said that the next breed of CEOs will be from the HR domain. We have one here with us. So Paul Russo has been leading the integration of National Bank of Kenya into KCB. He is the KCB Group Director of Regional Businesses and previously served as the KCB Group Human Resource. He has over 18 years of work experience spanning executive and key roles, including Group HR Director at KCB Group PLC, Receiver Manager of former Chase Bank, Head of HR, Barclays Standard Services, that is Barclays Africa, Regional HR Head and HR Change Lead at Barclays Africa. He was also the head of HR in Barclays Tanzania and head of human capital at PwC. He has also served as the chief HR officer at Cairo Bank, HR manager at Unga Holdings, and acting compensation and benefits manager at Kenya Breweries. I am reading all that so that all the people present can see the career trajectory and get inspired. Paul holds an MBA from Strathmore University Business School and a Bachelor of Business Management from Moi University. He also holds a senior executive program from Harvard Business School and a higher diploma in resource management from the Institute of Human Resources, Kenya. He serves as a director in the boards of KCB Bank, Uganda Limited, KCB Insurance Agency, KCB Capital Limited. Welcome to the session, Paul. So it's really a pleasure to be hosting today. Our topic of discussion is digitizing for business re-entry. So it will be a fireside chat to motivate us on this cold morning. Just imagine you're seated right in front of a fire where we'll be having conversations from the heart. Hans, I would want this also to be an interactive session. So at some point, I would want the tech team to help us by unmuting the participants to be able, I want to hear their voices. So I would like them to ask the questions for themselves. So Nancy and Paul, when we met to just debrief for this session, we had a very interesting conversation. And I would like us to take a step back to look the pre-COVID. Nancy, you're already in the digital space currently, and it would be interesting to hear how the transition was for you. For sure, it must have been seamless, but there are some things that you needed to adjust to fit into the new normal. And for Paul, I'd really like to know how was it the pre-COVID? Where was the digital transformation in the strategy, and when were you hoping to achieve it? Yeah, so that's the conversation that I would like to begin with. So over to you, Nancy.
Thank you very much, Lena, and good afternoon, all of us that are with us here today. I'm really excited by the question that you have asked, because people always expect a digital organization either to be always ahead of the curve, and sometimes it's not the case. But by the time I joined MultiChoice in 2019, December, what I found in the organization is that it's a very digitally apt organization. In fact, we're already running on Microsoft Teams, as well as using Blue Jeans as our way of driving collaboration across the 50 African countries and our corporate office in Dubai. However, the traction in country was not as high. But by the time I joined in, we had a challenge around culture, and we were driving a transformation around speed of execution, quality of execution, repositioning ourselves in the marketplace, and reestablishing ourselves as the market leader beyond video entertainment in PTV as we knew it. And that required a change of mindset. What COVID did for us, when it so happened in March, that then the president declared certain directives and offices had to close, inadvertently schools had to close, people had to go home. In these 3 months, January, February, and March, we'd already adopted the digital collaboration tools, specifically Microsoft Teams, to be able to drive sales on a daily basis. We met every morning at 7 a.m. already to track our sales with our sales leaders across the 5 regions in the country. We're also using the same to check the daily beat of the organization at 8 a.m. every day at 8 a.m. So by the time COVID came, it only accelerated the motivation for us to really use these tools even harder to drive the ambition that we wanted. So what we saw changed in particular is the psyche of the human being with respect to the fact that I can be available wherever I am at. So excuses like I can't come to work because I'm not feeling too good because maybe I had a drink, those disappeared. Because what happened then is that the fact that I can work from home helped us even drive higher engagement, higher productivity, because all you had to do anyway is just log on to Teams and then shift everybody to focusing on objectives and outcomes, as opposed to seeing, are you seated on your desk? Have you reported to your workstation? Have you spoken to your dealer? Our conversation shifted completely to outcomes because I can't see you. And therefore, the only thing I can see is the results. So it did accelerate the transformation that we were looking for and the adoption of the new culture that we required in order for us to be able to reposition ourselves.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And I'll come back to the adoption of culture just to hear your insights. And this was a conversation yesterday. Over to Paul. You're in the banking industry, and I'm just thinking, in the midst of all this digital transformation, we never thought that some aspects of the bank could even be digitized. So I guess for you, you are dealing with many things. So please take us through the memory lane of the 1 year after COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. Thank you, Nancy. Great to be in the panel with yourself, Nancy. And good afternoon, everyone. Always humbled to speak in Strathmore and with Strathmore, either the faculty or those of us that have gone through the way, or those who plan to go through Strathmore. I hope you can hear me, typical of my voice, and it doesn't get any better with this cold.
We can hear you, Paul.
Thank you. I think for us it was a lot, very interesting, and hard to just try and compress. But let me give a view. KCB Group acquired National Bank in September 2019, and typical of the direction of travel. And I think at that point it was a little bit more linear. Is we were going to take control and we were going to scale it up. And as usual, like most of organizations, you kind of look at your numbers in November and start saying, what is your projection and what you're going to do in 2020, and with a lot of ambition. So you use your calculator and spreadsheets, whatever model that you use. For those of us who are very good in statistics, I wasn't one of them. You can use what Professor Odhiambo taught you. But then, and the outlook was very good, to be honest. And Q1 came in, and it looked like we were running on the right run rate, if I can use that term. And bam, COVID. I'm sure it was happening before, but it revealed itself strongly. And all of a sudden, the first thing that then happened is you're fighting for survival. It's no longer about the profits you had projected. It was not about your performance that you delivered in Q1. Everything just stopped to get to survival. And for us, what was very important was you then realize that for the first time you get infections in branches. You're gonna have to find time to turn around those branches to service customers quickly. But not only that, it taught you that all your portfolio of staff cannot be in those locations. And there was the reality for us on digital. I kind of say, you then realize that you needed what you had delayed on investment, whether it is mobile. What you had tried to avoid from a risk basis, you now realize that you need to amend your risk appetite. And I used then a clear example. Banks did not have internet connection for, and I think a number still don't have for tellers, forgetting that the phone the teller has is more powerful than the computer they have at the front desk. So for us to cut a long story short, we just had to overhaul our risk appetite in the right way. We then had to fast track automation. So what you would see for National Bank today is a completely new agency banking deployment. It's a completely new internet banking deployment, all delivered in 2020 during COVID. The mobile banking enhancement to make sure that the things that you used to come and do in the branch is now available on network. But I think because we are in a HR setup, on the other part is a complete different shift in terms of how you deploy people, in terms of how you lead people, and in terms of, and I'm sure it's going to be a subject of discussion in terms of what you demand of leaders. And most importantly, then what are the matrices that you're going to use in that new environment? Because for banking, it was, I needed to see you, and the customer needed to see me. As a leader, I needed to know that my guys are on 17th floor, and sometimes I'll do umbwa, as you say, to just be sure that they are there. All of a sudden, as a leader first, I just had to realize the floor is empty, and I have to be comfortable that the guys are working to that extent. So a fast track on technology implementation and investments, and a fast track on the change of leadership and demand on people, I would say.
Thank you for those insights. And I would want us to delve deeper into the change management, because it looks easy as you tell us, but I'm sure it came with a lot of challenges. I would want us to know what are some of the strategies, tactics that you use to fast track this change. And Nancy, for you, the tech company, I would imagine all your staff were tech savvy. They had an appetite for digital. So maybe there was not much challenge, but let's talk to the customer that you're serving. And I'm thinking of your dealers who may not be in the classification of millennials. So how did you deal with that, Nancy?
So you're right. First and foremost, when we're defining the profile of the people we hire for culture, fit, alongside technical fit and subject matter expertise, and of course, future potential. But when we talk about culture fit, we go a step further and say, since we're a digital and technology-led organization, then the people we hire must be technologically apt and digitally savvy. And therefore, it would be a surprise to find anybody who is not digitally savvy, including those that are of advanced age like myself, who are not born digital natives. So you have to be naturally a digital person. But then we have customers who would still insist pretty much they have to pay their monthly reconnection fee via the counter in the branches. What we saw during this period, because of the stigma around COVID, people opted to stay at home. Therefore, all of a sudden, we saw more than doubling, actually exponential growth of all our self-service channels. That's Star 423, my DSTV app, my GoTV, including Showmax. And we also saw an increasingly interesting trend around digital consumption. We were struggling to drive our streaming platforms, but now more often than not, we hear people complaining that my DSTV app is not working. And people never used to complain about DSTV app not working. So we've seen a lot more people keeping up with content wherever they are at on DSTV app at Showmax. So our customers are beginning to help us shift into the digital entertainment economy. But the most interesting observation was the shift by our partners, especially in the dealer ecosystem and the installer ecosystem. What we found is because we have quarterly and annual conferences, dealer conferences and installer conferences, and we couldn't do them physically. We also use them as award galas where we award and reward the best performing dealers and installers, and they have to come in person because usually there would be parties and put a bit of jubilation, and there are big awards to be won. So this time around, what we found, because it was all digital, we found a lot more of young people participating. So because they are most likely, more likely than not, family-driven businesses and family-owned businesses, we found the children of the owners now coming to the fore and running the conversations, leading the conversations and participating. And now it's been 18 months since we found ourselves in this situation. It's now solidly about 10 months into embracing the new way of work. And I'm working with a much younger set of digitally savvy dealers and their downline of agents. And then there's a new crop of entrepreneurs. So even when we were recruiting, because we've been expanding our channels across all the sales and customer service channels, and all the partners that have successfully come on board are actually digital. You can see there's a very high level of digital literacy, as well as a very high level, digital awareness quotient levels. But what's interesting is the installer. Your typical installer is a technician. It's the guy that comes into your house with tools that will come, looking a bit rugged sometimes. And we had a bit of a problem with what we're calling cowboy installers, who are technicians who've been trained by another technician. They will go and pick a DSTV kit and go and sell it because they've picked it from the downline of agents, and go into a house and install, and we get complaints arising out of poor installation. So the system has weeded off the non-compliant, because you must first and foremost come onto the digital platform to get the jobs and to what we call the installer ecosystem, multi-choice installer ecosystem. And now we have a new crop of what we are calling the digital entrepreneur. And I keep saying, this is truly the age of the digital entrepreneur. It's the age of the digital worker, brought much earlier, as you said earlier. It's 7 years accelerated into today.
Yeah, 7 years, according to a research by McKinsey. And Paul, for you, you mentioned that you had to develop that a risk appetite. Tell us more about that, because the banking systems are very sensitive. How was it for you, even with the stakeholder management, and being able to really have that conversation around risk and working from home?
No, thank you, Lena. I think we must, if COVID was a human being, a few of us should hug COVID. And I really mean it, because COVID brought a sense of urgency and brought an emergency, both from staff and the decision makers. I think that I can't emphasize that point, more. That the demand for change was no longer driven from the top. Everybody was asking for that change. Now, typical of HR guys, you have to set up Q&As, you have to set up briefs for a change, you have to set up what is in it for me, you have to set up, all those scripts that we pump in as HR professionals, just to tell people that, wanted to deploy a certain technology capability. That was replaced by COVID. So everybody just stared at COVID and said, hey, bring it. If it's going to make me safe, let me go for it. I think that for me was the ingredient and very important item. So let me pick, bit about working for Barclays is it forced us to use examples. So take, for example, VPN, a virtual, private network to access. I can tell you personally, I had no need for VPN. I stopped somebody else, myself. I could do everything I needed to do. I had an iPad. I just didn't need it. And all of a sudden, because we were told, for security, IT information security purposes, the only guys who could do it are the few few select IT people who you could monitor what they're doing in the system, because the rest of us were thugs in the eyes of the organization. Yeah, it didn't matter whether you are the MD, you had to fill a long form to justify why you needed a VPN. All of a sudden, the point was there were meetings to get list of people and signed off all those who needed the VPN. Somehow we got the VPN and somehow the system did not crash. Somehow nobody stole anything from the organizations and banks, Lena. So think about it. It would have been a whole story of doing a business case in a boardroom why you needed to give all your people, most of your people, VPN access. But the easier way to answer your question is also to say the future of organization has been, as we knew that it was about people and technology. So COVID has just come in to fast track that. But it has brought in a very, very classic issue in terms of change management, that the glue to deliver, to utilize those two pillars is actually leadership. And now it's demanding of leadership at all levels. And it's demanding of a different profile of leadership. So think about change in a simplistic way. I know the subject matter experts in the room. That whole process is letting the person be uncomfortable with the situation where you are in, letting the person have a sense of urgency to transition to where you should be. Yeah, it's that simple. Now, COVID has put this to you. The only big thing people are looking up to is to say, hey, boss, help us transition from here to the other side safely. We know we must. You don't need to convince us. But just let me know that when I use VPN at home, I'll be safe. Because at the end of the day, I kind of want to be safe to protect my job. But the other point, Lena, is for entities like banks, and particularly ourselves across KCB Group, we just realized that people did not have internet at home. People did not have suitable chairs and tables at home. People did not have laptops at home. You would assume that they would. And maybe we're lucky that we are banks. But we said, instead of giving people that, what we actually did is enable people to invest in that so that it's yours. It's not bank's property. So help you, because we can give loans at preferential rates in some ways, help you to acquire office desk chair, suitable chair that meets a internet connection. And effectively, what does it do later from an HR point of view? It removes excuses, it removes barriers to performance, but it also demonstrates commitment. And I think Nancy will mention the example she shared with us about what they did for their people, which I found very powerful, right? So that whole process of unlocking and freezing from where we are today to where we want to go became easier, but brought a different demand of the leadership. It's a long way to answer, but hopefully that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense, and you brought very interesting points on leadership. And Nancy, as you share the story and bringing in the aspect of, as captains of the industry, what would you want the HR people to do? Or how can they support the business in digitizing?
All right, thank you, Lena, and thank you, Paul, once again. I was sharing with Paul and Lena, and I told them I did not realize how valuable the HR person and professional is in the life of a CEO. And I can tell you confidently that COVID has elevated my respect for the HR profession, as much as the finance profession and every other profession in the room that deserves a seat in the boardroom. But let's come to the HR professional. It's very easy to fall into the pitfalls of labor laws and get protected because it is written down. But we're faced with a pandemic. People have to think creatively and outside the box. So usually we would drive engagement of our workforce, being an entertainment company, by having every Friday at the end of the month We would have, the usual young people kind of engaging activities, whether it's with a DJ on site and a lot of food and drink. But now here comes COVID, you can't have that anymore. And we used to spend a fairly good portion of a budget towards that. And the HR head came in and said, Nancy, I was very worried. We measure engagement on a weekly basis, literally, using what we call the office vibe to measure the tempo and the beat of the organization. And if it drops, we see immediate drop in performance, whether it is sales, whether it's marketing execution. It's very important to us. And my head of HR sat down with her team and very quickly came and said, no, we're going to do virtual TGIFs. And I was very skeptical at the very beginning. And then she said, no, we also need to demonstrate that we are a caring organization and we need to do it meaningfully. So we need to address the most important pain point right now. You will all recall getting access to masks, getting access to sanitizers, and even soap at one point was almost impossible. It was a premium. So we managed to utilize our logistics together with G4S and various other partners that we have, that we used to deploy our equipment across the entire country to be able to map the home of every single of our 500 employees, as well as the agency staff, which almost works at almost 1,000 staff complement. And we're able to deliver on a monthly basis what we call a care pack. That care pack and the entire expenditure was less than 25% of what we spent on a monthly basis. But what it did to the organization was unbelievable, because everybody, the sentiment of thank you so much, we are so grateful, and people saying, look at what my organization has done for me. We've continued to do it every month up to now. Then our virtual TGIFs, we brought in the virtual DJ and a real DJ, including actors like Jimmy Gathu to engage. And usually we would have maybe about 10% of the organization on and off participating in the TGIFs physically. But now we have almost 50% of the organization coming in, because you can dance from your house and you can make your requests. And we have speakers, we have special conversations. So we changed, and I saw the HR professionals in my team rise up to the occasion of real creativity in changing the way the organization had to deal with the pandemic. And then finally, let me say that, we say that we move at the speed of capital, and we move at the speed of financial capital, at the speed of our partners. Now, the value of partnership. And then we also say that people are the most important people. It's not a cliche. People are the most important asset. It's no longer a cliche. I can tell you that for a fact. You will move at the speed of your people. And more than ever, as Paul said, the sense of urgency is so high that you can only move at the speed of the people that you have. But you will only do that if you're also meeting your end of the bargain, because people are people with feelings, emotions, and they have aspirations and motivations. So if you look at what the insights told us about our people, as we move to the digital way of work fully, they were getting fatigued, tired, and too many meetings, because jumping out of a meeting was as easy as switching off from one screen to the other. You didn't have to walk, therefore you didn't have to provide for space in between meetings. Now that has forced us to actually restructure our calendar and create what we are calling focus slots. We've also been very mindful of the critical meetings that we must have. We have very many stand-up meetings, daily stand-up meetings for different sessions, but who needs to be there? So we then distribute the work effectively across the entire organization. But then point number one, about human beings, about your digital worker today. Health and safety is at the top of their mind every single day. And it's not so much more the physical health now, it's about mental wellness. So mental wellness and also wellness that comes with sitting too much, immobility. So you now have to think creatively outside what you have to do to ensure that they are not then getting sick or dropping into wellness issues related to mental issues because of the way you have structured work. And finally, let me say that again, and I must really thank you, the HR professional, because if you have your people in tip-top condition, you will see the results. And my HR team, what they did as well was, I was having sleepless nights over any case, potential case of COVID. I was the #1 case of COVID infections in the organization. There was stigma around it. But talking about my story and my husband, who was hospitalized for 5 weeks, 3 of which were in ICU, and successfully coming out of it, and we are very thankful and grateful to God as well, and all the professionals that helped us through the journey. But speaking about it and taking away the stigma did help. But what helped even more was the fact that we changed our insurance service provider, courtesy again of the HR professional that realized that the pressure was not only too much for me, but they also had a responsibility to ensure that it's not just the senior leadership that was covered, but everybody in the entire organization had a COVID cover. And they were able, when crisis comes and people have to think creatively and find solutions, and you open up the world of possibilities and thinking around possibilities, people do find these solutions. And they were able to find us a service provider to take care of all our employees at lower than the cost that we were paying before, with expanded benefits, which included a COVID cover. And now I can tell you I'm seated here really comfortable to a great extent that if I get a case, I'm happy we can put them in a decent healthcare system. And I'm not worried about consequences, because as you may not know sometimes, and maybe Paul and other senior leaders and captains of industry would share, the emotional, I don't want to call it a burden, responsibility that a CEO sometimes carries is way beyond numbers. It's also about people and potential bloodstains that you would possibly live with if you didn't do the right thing and protect the lives of people. So that's my story and the story of MultiChoice Kenya around taking care of people and how the HR profession really stepped up to change the trajectory. We saw our employee engagement grow from 76% to 78, 80, 81. Today we start at 82%. We saw our employee net promoter score also grow effectively, and now we are standing at a really good 46%. A +1 ENPS as HR professionals, is really a good performance. And this came on the backdrop of, first and foremost, taking care of the employee in order for you to protect your profitability, to manage your balance sheet, stabilize the organization, and set yourself for growth for the opportunities, because those of us that will be ready tomorrow when the market opens up, the windfall will be on your side, and we choose not to see the headwinds, we choose to see the opportunities. Thank you, Lena. My apologies for speaking too much.
No, thank you for sharing the stories. And I'm just thinking, take care of your employee and they will take care of your business. And I'm also thinking we have to move to being humane in the organization. And Paul, talking of humane, where is the intersection of empathy and performance management?
That's a very good indicator for anyone who's doing some thesis. That's a good question for people to answer. But thank you, Lena. I think just to come into that, the first challenge that I had, and for me, I look back and I say, thank God I'm an HR professional. Yeah, because the first challenge I had was to transform National Bank. Then bang, you're transforming National Bank with COVID, and therefore you have to survive COVID as an element. And I would say it would have been a lot difficult if I wasn't an HR professional. That I must confess. because you're walking into a building with 1,300 people permanent, and you're trying to transform the organization from loss-making to profitability, reshape that into the KCB way, and then you get COVID. I think for HR professional, I'll come into that performance management. What I've learned as an HR professional, both as a leader and seeing what HR business partners are doing, is that thing, what we read and what we are taught about being a trusted advisor, is just not something in theory. Because again, as a CEO, you're like Nancy has said, you're looking at numbers, you're looking at stakeholders, you're looking at COVID and all that. The most important thing for you is somebody that you can trust. And that point of reference is always the HR person. So in many sessions when I've spoken about, I've asked HR people to get out of the politics side of HR and get into that space of a trusted advisor. There's nothing that a CEO values like a person that tells them, hold on, have you thought about 1, 2, 3, 4? They're not telling you not to do something. They're just telling you, have you thought about, they're asking you whether you've thought about that. But as you journey on that, one of the other items that I've thought about, and I'll come to your question around empathy and performance management, is the importance of emotional intelligence and elevating that across the organization. That when you feel as a leader that you are feeling you are not in control and you are aware about your emotions, you can take a step back. So a little bit of investment I've asked my guys in HR to do across the businesses is raising the level of emotional intelligence. You know, and now when you come to empathy and performance, I think we must give people benefit of doubt. No one gets out of their bed, get into a matatu and come to a workplace without good intention. Very important. So majority of our people actually mean well. They are one or two but that are outliers, and the statistics guys can compute that. But most of our people wake up in the morning and they actually want to do their best. What COVID has taught us is that, and Nancy has given real examples, if you actually truly demonstrate that you care, you elevate that intersection. You actually, because what it does, and I don't want to go into definitions in HR, is you improve your engagement. And when you improve your engagement, it actually means that you increase the willingness of the person to give discretional effort to be able to contribute. So if you become empathetic in this time and take care of staff, their families, right? One of the things that I've seen so powerful is that whenever we have had COVID cases, we've taken care of third-party staff, cleaners. We've taken care of their families. It's an additional cost. But those are the people that have been serving you tea. And guys will remember, nobody even wanted to touch the flask anymore to pour tea. But you are safe as how safe that tea lady, that tea girl, that cleaner is. That's what COVID taught us. And therefore, as you care about your staff, you must care about the ecosystem. And when we do that, you raise the engagement level. You raise the ability for people to give discretionary effort. For me, that is what I would say is that intersection. That care beyond your employee, beyond your person, into your ecosystem does elevate performance.
Wow, care beyond our ecosystem. Now I get it even more. If COVID was a person, you would hug it, because beyond the sickness, I think it's just changing the environment and the things we perceive to be important. At this point, I would want to take a pause and take questions from our delegates. And we are still utilizing the chat option, but I would also want to hear their voices. And thank you, Amy Rose, for what you've sent there. 3H coaching framework: head, heart, and hands in action. Speaking to our tribe. Thank you. Anyone who would want to ask a question to our panelists? Any hand up? Okay, so as you still come up with the questions, I would want to hear leadership. Paul mentioned about leadership. Nancy, how, in terms of your leadership style, how was it pre-COVID and during COVID? What has changed?
Right. So what's my leadership style? So most people describe me as highly intense, very fast, quick results, wants intellectual conversations a lot, and holds to account performance by objectives and outcomes. So I'd say that in the past, I really struggled with that orientation, in the sense that it would take a longer time for people to understand. I'm very digital. I do a lot of things digitally. I carry my devices wherever I go, my laptop, my everything that I have, literally. My bags, I have like 4 bags with me, but they are full of devices pretty much. And therefore, because I would not understand, why are you not able to respond? I think people now resonate with my speed more, because this style is possibly a lot more appreciated now. Because one of the feedback that I get is that people get responses very quickly. However, being an extremely intense person that wants results quick and really fast, and that's where I find myself in highly transformative and often fairly difficult roles where I'm going to fix situations. It really can sometimes take away your humanity, because you're so focused on results. During COVID, I can tell you, your human side is tested to the core, as Paul has said. If you're not human, because people are not there to see you, you cannot shake them from their seats or huddle them into a boardroom, and they can switch on their screens. They can tell you my internet is not working, and there's nothing you can do about that. So it has really helped me connect with my human side a lot more, because to get to the person, to get better results, you have to connect more at the heart level and not just at intellectual. Someone has said it's an application of hands and head, but those of us that are very rational and very intellectual in nature sometimes score very poorly on the heart side. So for me, it's just been possibly what I required in my career and my life to help me transition, look through my river of life, figure out that indeed you can still get results by being humane, but most importantly, by allowing yourself to be vulnerable and authentic, by being Nancy. Don't be somebody else. Do not try to be anybody else. And to connect at a human level, you have to accept your vulnerabilities. You have to accept who you are in order for you to come across as authentic. And I can say it's allowed me also to take away the fears of exposing who I am. This is who I am. I'll never be somebody else. And you thrive and execute when you're at your best. So my style really has evolved towards a lot more connection at a human level, and evolving more to allowing myself to be and exposing that personality to my teams as well. Of course, whilst guarding certain areas, but that vulnerability and authenticity has helped me connect better with people, with my people at all levels, and they are young. I am possibly a mother to most of them. In terms of age, they're in their 20s, their mid-20s, and early 20s, who are my children. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you. Thank you. Paul, how has your leadership transitioned? And for you, between the change management, integration, tell us about that.
I think I've seen it at different levels. Obviously, I have two tough roles. There's the NBK role, and you're managing some guys in Tanzania who are refusing that there was COVID. You're managing the guys in South Sudan who felt they were in a different world of their own. Uganda, and you can see what is happening in Uganda now and Rwanda in terms of ravage of COVID wave 4. I am a highly execution-focused person. Yeah, that's and that has been my profile. But then, on that, to be able to be effective, I perfected being a handshake, a feel person, so a face-to-face person. Because when you're highly execution focused, and you can easily be a slave driver, you have to have a connection with the people to be sensitive. So I must say I struggled on this thing of don't shake hands. I still struggle. But I'm a touch and feel to then moderate my execution profile setup. So with a face-to-face and in terms of driving the organizational agenda. So I then had to say, so how do I become sensitive that I'm not so intense in a lack of face-to-face setup? So I've had to adjust that intensity. And the only way you can adjust that intensity is to start giving people a little bit more space. So highly execution-focused people want to be in it. They want to be in. They want to be in the action. It doesn't mean you don't trust your people, but you want to be where the action is. So I've learned to stay away. I've learned to find different ways of getting feedback, getting that feel, getting that vibe. And people that know me, that's a lot difficult. But I've also learned that I know we read books that talks about leadership and vulnerability, but actually I've learned to live with vulnerability. I've learned, and don't take these bad manners from me, I've learned that in many instances it's okay to miss the deadline. But at what point did you know that you're going to miss the deadline, and how did you manage the stakeholders? In the past, that was not me. There is no missing deadline. So because then you've managed those, you've got stakeholders up, you've got stakeholders down. So I've become comfortable with vulnerability. I've actually found it easier now to say, oh, okay, it's okay. In the past, you'd never hear that from me. It's that you missed deadline and it's okay. No, not me. You've got to back what happened, what was the gap, and how do we address, how do I help you? And then you also have to become a lot more sensitive. So those who are execution focused, it's easier to respond to email immediately. Yeah, I never used to carry laptops. I must own up. Even when I travel out of the country, an iPad was enough. Now, because of the two systems in KCB and NBK, I carry two laptops and I carry two iPads. And all is because I need to respond to my people a lot faster than before. So it's no longer about me. It's now shifted to somebody else. Because I always told people, so what's the emergency? If it was emergency, like what we tell Matatu guys, you should have started your journey yesterday. You should have done it yesterday. But then now you realize that the pace has changed, and you have to, and because you brought in tech and you've put your people on the tech capability, their speed of move is a lot faster than what you were experiencing before. Now the problem with tech, and this is the human side of it, the problem with tech and people working with tech, when they don't receive response, it triggers emotions. It triggers worry. When somebody sends you the work they've been doing and you've not responded, soon enough, I don't know whether you identify with that, Lena, it triggers emotion.
Yes.
And because they're going through a lot more, especially job safety, right? Remember why people resisted going to work from home in the past, in the first instance when we were starting this piece, is because they thought, now you will identify, which we have, that some people are not required, there is idle capacity. So people still wanted to come to the workplace, not because they can't work from home, but because they thought the team A that is working from the workplace is the one that is assured of jobs if there are job cuts. Now, if you fail to respond to them as fast as you do when they're in the office, then you bring the mental issues and discussions. So I'm struggling here with my wife and the kid making noise. I'm struggling here with the dog that is making noise. I'm struggling with a cat that is just climbing everywhere and disrupting me. But I'm also getting a boss that is not responsive. So that concoction becomes a mental issue. And just adds the level of stress. Now, I might be digressing, and I know Strathmore is a Catholic, but then people have access to the fridge, and that fridge contains so many things. So if you raise the level of stress, no wonder people are adding weight. People are eating more bread, and people are drinking more because you've taken them away and you've given them technology to work in the workplace. As a leader, I've realized that I have a role to make sure that that person is comfortable to work in the workplace. So it's a long way to answer that question, Lena. Thank you.
But very helpful, a long way, but very helpful. We are coming to the end of our session, and maybe before I ask you to give us your closing remarks, I would want to know, Nancy, the speed of execution has come when you are answering the leadership question, both from you and from Paul. But it also brings the question of blurred boundaries between work, home, family. What are your insights about that?
I'm smiling, and please do forgive. There's a track that chooses that every time I go into conference, it gets cranked up. So please bear with me. So what happened? Let me give you my past. I like to give personal experiences and examples. And if I relate to the struggles of my people, I have to relate to them at my level first and foremost. So what happens with technology? And if you're a multinational organization like ourselves, operating in 5 different time zones, we have people in the US, people in the Czech Republic, our technology teams, we have people in South Africa, Dubai, and across Africa. So there is nothing like the day starts at 8 a.m. because a different country started at 7 or at 6. Sometimes we are forced to go into virtual conferences very early for people in different locations or very late. There's no lunch hour as well in the way we know it. So 1 p.m. in Nairobi is only 12 o'clock in South Africa, yet it is already 2 p.m. in Dubai. So, and my team inadvertently, because they work with SME subject matter experts across different factions in the corporate organizations in the various locations globally, they also find themselves in this situation. But what happened with COVID, with the increased intensity and the hastened pace, your device, I was always with you. Now you realize because you're working from home, it is time to sleep. I need to change into my pajamas. I can't because I need to present myself in a particular order. And eventually, in my particular case, I found that it was creeping into my life. And I needed to compartmentalize my work and my home, because then my children would even start to ask, is this the way your day is every day from morning to evening? You're in meetings and you're just speaking and giving direction, asking questions. Is that what a CEO does? And isn't it tiring? Are you not getting tired? And I'd say, actually, it's not like that every day. It's intensified, and I need to do something to pioneer a different way of work in this new normal. Therefore, as you can see, I'm seated in my office. MultiChoice, since the pandemic broke across the entire world, we've been working from home. So everybody works from home. You work from wherever you are at, whichever continent you want to be, just deliver the results. Then what's happened, many people wrote to me, my own workforce writing to me, my colleagues writing to me and saying, please could you consider between this time at least, because you have control for in-country meetings, please don't set up meetings and don't call for meetings. So I had to respect that more than ever. People were in desperate need of their time because your child is there waiting for you. It's not like you're in the office, stacked up or holed up in a meeting room. She's there. She wants attention. Got to give her attention. She wants help with schooling. Mothers and fathers are playing the role of not just a worker that you have to work for your company. You're also sometimes the one who has to be the nanny because you have to feed the child because she's there and expecting it. They are the ones also helping with homework more than ever, especially last year, helping with schooling. And all of a sudden, life is becoming unbearable. So what then we had to do is to also, in our TGIFs and our sessions with our team, is to speak about how do you create compartments for work, play, family, love, and all these things that you've got to do to live a wholesome life. So I compartmentalize personally, physically. I come in physically to work because I have the freedoms of a good space and big space, but I can still work from home. When I go home, it's time for me and my husband. I've got to give my husband attention, and he can see truly I have come home, and the wife is home. And I can give attention to my children. I can see mommy has come home. She's here. It was very difficult. There were clearly blurred lines between the different compartments that are very important to a wholesome life. Even church, we are all doing mass online on TV or joining, jumuiyas or prayer groups or small Christian communities on Zoom. This life was becoming too much Zoom, too much Teams. So we've had to actually structure the way you need to structure your life, and also teach employees it's okay to have a focus hour in your calendar and block it off in the morning or afternoon. It's okay to say, this is time for my family, and say it. And I respect family. I respect family, and my team knows that. You come to me and you have a family issue, so you go first, attend to family. After all, as Paul said, nobody wakes up really coming to an organization. They come to give themselves 99% of the people and of the time. So if they're doing that, they also know that I only have 30 days of sick off. I only have so many 28 days of leave. And they are responsible enough to manage that. So freely give and connect and be sensitive, and allow them to compartmentalize their life into fun, into family, and life must go on because we were made to live. Work is complementary to life, not the other way around. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Paul, you alluded to the issue of the mental wellness, and maybe perhaps you could speak to that, the mental wellness. And as we have HR here, I'm thinking, you mentioned HR should be a trusted advisor. Most of the times, they're the ones who are checking into the mental wellness of the people in the organization. Who takes care of them?
Yeah, I think one of the things that COVID has taught us, and I hope we all share on this, is never have I seen before in my entire HR career. I've done HR for 18 years direct. And as I said, Lena, I have my practicing certificate that is valid. So I'm an HR professional. I just pretend to do other things. Never have I come to recognize the importance of the quality of line managers than in this period of COVID. The maturity of line managers, the quality of leadership that never have I think if there's anything we need to go and do is go and evaluate where we are with our line managers and put in programs, invest to raise the level of our line managers. And I'll come to that question on mental health. if your line managers are not able to treat people as human beings in the first instance before they chase the numbers, if they are not mature enough to understand different times to call people to ask for updates, different times to schedule, as Nancy says, to schedule meetings, if they are not mature enough to choose their words sensitively in the way they speak to people. I'm sure many of us have seen that cartoon that was doing round where a gentleman was on call like the way we are today, and the wife came in and said to the people, the person that was speaking to the line manager, and said, "You gotta stop abusing my husband, otherwise I'm going to disconnect this this call because you're using our internet, our chairs, and is eating our food, etc." I mean, we can have a lot of debate around it, but that sensitivity, because there are a number of things that drive people to that level of to have mental issues. And I'm not a mental doctor. I'm an HR professional. The first is they have a lot that is going on in their life that you have no view of. And your first responsibility is to try as a line manager to have a bigger view of their life as much as they can allow you to. It's not you have to have permission. So you must invest in the relationship for them to be able to allow you to have a bigger view of their life. Only then, the bigger the view, you can put it in Queen's English, but I'll put it, the bigger the view, the wider the view, the better the relationship, the better the life, the better the productivity, the better the mental health. That's very important. The second bit is what you do with the staff when they are in your location, when they're with you. That whole aspect of first having a meaningful job, which means the role is clear, they understand what they need to do, having a meaningful deliverables and performance management, but over and above that, treating them as human beings. You could have treated a person, come as they say in Kiswahili, mtu mzima, mtu mzima. The moment you start employing, that person is above 18 level. So you have to start understanding what does it mean to treat watu kama watu wazima. And people say, oh, Paul, but they still digress. Don't generalize. It's not everybody that generalizes. But then because of the things you don't have a view of can affect the staff, you need to create an environment where they can express what is hurting them. Then HR professionals, you have to be able to treat that confidentially. And you must then have solutions. Then you must hand them over, support them to an expert, and make sure you're funding that process and you are able to integrate them back. Shida ya watu wa HR mara mingi, mtu akitokezea namna hii, for those of us who understand Kiswahili, I'll translate. Unaanza kusikia kwa mtaa, unajua nani amerukwa na kitu haki, hayuko sawa. Now, people have come to you genuinely because you are a HR professional, or the line manager has told you the behavior of this staff has changed. There is something that is not right. So you have the conversation with the person, you realize there is actually something not right. Your problem, and that's why we have wellness managers in the organization. The first thing I did with NBK was to hire a qualified person to be a wellness manager, because I'm not a health person. So if you refer to that person, they walk a journey until they discover they actually need help. If you need to send the person to Dr. Frank Jenga, it becomes between the health wellness person and Dr. Frank Jenga and the staff. It's not a corridor discussion. And for all I care, the person, everybody in the street should know that the person is on leave. That's fine, right? And then when the person is well, you integrate the person, right? That is one other important thing about HR and professional. So I think we can talk about it later, but mental health is actually so important today in this country and is affecting people. that it can actually cause loss of jobs, and it can finish an entire family. So organizations must care about it.
Thank you, thank you. And maybe while we are still there, you can give us your closing remarks.
I think for me, it's to challenge HR professionals. I know when you're introducing me, I think, guys, it's doable. You got to take risks, ask for challenging assignments, get yourself out of your comfort zone and pick up different kind of assignments to build up your own career. But I remind you, you are the heart of the organization. You are the glue of the leadership team. You have to step up to be able to be a cut above the rest of the leadership teams, to be able to provide direction when it comes to people. You don't have to be an expert. I'm not an expert of anything. Rely on subject matter experts to drive the rest of the things. But most importantly, stay true to the connection of people and the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Nancy, your closing remarks?
Thank you. My closing remarks are really to just first and foremost thank the HR professional for the work that you're doing in your organizations to help leaders like ourselves make the right decisions. And more than ever, I'd call on you to really rise up to the core and the challenge to help us navigate through the leadership and ethical and moral dilemma that the pandemic has created for us. But most importantly, remember that indeed, we have been already ushered into the future era that we thought would come so far into the future. It's here with us. Therefore, we have to proactively redefine the profiles of people we are looking for and the people that we have. Therefore, it is time also to redefine and elevate the profile for not just recruitment, but also for people development within the organization, in order for us to really help people to thrive in this digital economy and the era we are finding ourselves in. And don't underestimate the importance of removing the stigma around mental health, because the biggest problem we are grappling with today is indeed mental health. And help us really, it's okay to say I was at Dr. Frank Jenga's. The other day I met him in a lift. We're going to see the cabinet secretary of the pandemic issues. And I have the same slot just about the same time with Dr. Frank Jenga. And when I walked in and I said, I recall you, I know you don't know me, because I actually met him earlier on in my career when I was suffering an inordinate amount of stress. And I had to actually see a psychologist and a psychiatrist to help me manage and balance myself. And I can talk about it now because my daughter is also doing behavioral psychology as well, and behavioral economics and it's called neuroscience or something like that. And she's helped me also understand it's important for us as leaders to take away that stigma. So I call on you to help away, take the stigma around mental wellness. It doesn't mean that you're not safe. So when I went, when we were having the conversation, I said, I can tell you where we met, but in the past, I would never have even told you we've met before. Yeah. Neither would I have told people, by the way, I was with Dr. Frank Jenga, and because they would all automatically say there must be something wrong with her. She, as Paul is saying, there's something that is not just right. So you have such an important role as HR professionals. You're the ones that are going to help us re-emerge into greatness and grow our businesses into the next frontier by finding us the right people, developing the right people, dealing with all these wellness issues, and also just preparing us for the true digital economy that we have now found ourselves in. Thank you very much, and good luck with your profession and your organizations.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you very much, Paul. Indeed, it has been a conversation from the heart, from the examples that you've given. You have truly shown us what it means to be authentic.